I am Mark Boutwell, and I'm the Executive Director of Senior Solutions, the Area Agency on Aging in southeastern Vermont. We're thrilled to be here. We're thrilled that you all came out on this stormy, hot, muggy evening to hear Mark King, and I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting evening to hear his story and his journey. So we'll all be excited to hear what he has to tell us. I want to take a couple minutes to, again, welcome you all to the beautiful Bellows Falls Opera House. Senior Solutions is excited to partner with Bellows Falls Pride to sponsor this special presentation in celebration of Pride Month. We're hugely grateful to the Bellows Falls Opera House for hosting this event, and to Susan McNeil at Bellows Falls Pride for helping to organize this, and to the Vermont Community Foundation for providing some grant funding. This is the kind of partnership that is fundamental to the mission of Senior Solutions. It's easy to think of us just as a service organization, but that's only part of the picture of what Senior Solutions is about. We are very much about helping to create partnerships and networks to build community and to enable all older Vermonters to thrive. Together, we're making Vermont better for all people of all ages. So again, thank you for coming out. And I also have to thank and give a shout out to Tom Tsimmons, the Senior Solutions Nutrition and Wellness Director. He's the one who put this whole thing together. So, Tom, you can come up and I'll have you introduce Mark. Thank you again.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Opera House. I'd like to thank Mark as well for being the executive director of our agency and having the foresight to see that this was an issue that needed to be talked about, and we're talking about it tonight. I also want to thank especially Susan McNeil, who I have known for 2 decades and who is an absolute force of nature and who has helped me every step of the way with this. So thank you to Susan. Those of us, like myself, who were in their 20s when the AIDS crisis came about in the 1980s, are now in their 60s. That was never supposed to happen, but it did. So it's a brand new demographic. And it's a demographic of people who live at the intersection of 3 isms. We live at the intersection of ageism, because as you can tell, a lot of us no longer have the bodies we used to have when we were pin-up calendar boys. I know for me, getting to the 5th beach at Rock River is kind of like an Olympian challenge for me now. We live with the challenge of stigma from disease, a disease that's been around for decades and which many people are still unfamiliar with and unsure about and don't know about. And we live with with existence as a member of a gender or sexual minority. We are now entering the senior centers. We are now asking the questions about Medicare and Medicaid. We are now looking for wellness programs. We are now seeking help to stay in our homes independently. This is a new demographic. Vermont has the highest average age in the United States, off by maybe 0.1% if you look at Maine. And it has the highest LGBT proportion of residents of any state in the United States. This issue is Vermont, it is here, and it is now. Mark King has been an advocate for HIV-positive people for the majority of his life. And he too lives at this intersection of these 3 forces. 20 years ago, he designed a health program for people living with HIV that was replicated around the world and featured at the 1998 AIDS conference in Geneva, Switzerland. He has been featured on ABC, 48 Hours, BBC, CNN, and in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. In 2020, he was named Journalist of the Year by the National Gay and Lesbian Journalists Association, and the same year won GLAAD's Award for Outstanding Blonde. He has recently authored a new book, My Fabulous Disease, which is available in the lobby. And a few months ago, I figured a man with these impressive credentials would have absolutely nothing to do during Pride Month in June than to make a special trip to Vermont during the worst heat wave in our recorded history. And unbelievably, he said, yeah, I'll do it. So, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, and those who have yet to make up their minds, I present to you Mark S. King.
Wow, the applause continued until I got all the way up here. Golly, I want to say, first of all, why not? Why not Vermont? Why not? You know, I have been so charmed by y'all. I've been here for, has it been 24 hours even? I don't think so. I have a great host, Tom, who's shown me around everywhere. I've been in 4 states, and that was just getting here from the airport, which is new to me, and I've learned so much. I've learned how you make syrup. It takes 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup, and it comes out in tubes, and he's told me all about it. It's very interesting. I keep calling my husband with new facts about, did you know, Michael, I'll say, that Vermont has the highest percentage of same-sex households in the country? And he's like, oh, that's very interesting. I said, do you know that you can be naked anywhere in Vermont? And he's like, please don't test that theory. I'm just very happy to be here. I want to say another thank you, Senior Solutions, and thank you. Is it Bellows Falls Pride? Is that what it is? Bellows Falls Pride. That includes real people that just decided that they were going to get up off their butts and do something to make sure that people who are queer feel safer here. And to do that, they got together and started networking with each other. I had lunch today with a few of them that included Sue and Aaron and Gail and Mark and Mike, who were just boiling over with creativity and ideas on what they want to do to make this community safer for folks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sue, Mike, Gail, Aaron, I got everybody, and Mark, the people I had lunch with today. Just amazing people. I am a storyteller. That's what I do. I'm a writer, and so I've been writing about my lived experience ever since I was in my early 20s. It just so happens that I was living during the cusp of what we knew as gay pride at the time, and something else that happened that changed our lives and the world. And so I've been writing kind of in real time throughout that. And I'm going to give you some of those stories tonight. And because that's a storyteller, you're gonna get some queer history, you're gonna get some age and aging stuff, and you're gonna get some HIV stuff, because that's just my life, and so I can only tell the story I know. I'm gonna keep you from having to hear me read. It's the last thing you need, but humor me in 2 brief instances. You are gonna hear me read from my book, and the first one is the first thing I want to read for you. Is one of the first ones in here, and it's called HIV and Other Fabulous Prizes. And the reason is because I think it kind of sets up what we're about to do together for the next few minutes. In 1980, when I was 19 years old, I vacationed to Los Angeles and won a car on the game show, The Price is Right. I have a video of the entire episode, and it gets trotted out and viewed from time to time. On the tape, I'm impossibly cute, with a tall, lean body and a freckled face. There is bright orange hair on my head, blown dry to late 70s perfection, and parted in the middle between 2 feathered, astoundingly symmetrical sides. Portions of my Price is Right story are deeply ingrained from repeated tellings, as frozen in my delivery as they are on that old Betamax videotape. hearing Johnny Olson shouting, "Mark King, come on down," and galloping down the stage to bidding stations, jumping up and down, my sprayed hair jolted above me in 2 clumps, floating back down to my head, like snapping an orange sheet over a bed and watching it descend. Or when I won the very first prize that came up for bids in a manor range, and to the winner of that range goes, I can hear Johnny Olson saying, "Kentucky Fried Chicken in an insulated tote bag. It's so nice to feel so good about a meal." And the original retail price of that range is $689, and Mark, you've won it. Come on up here, Bob Barker declares, and I scramble up for a chat with Bob. Bob asks me where I'm from, and I tell him I'm a college student. "Really? What year?" he asks. I say I'm a senior. A lie. I was a sophomore. But yeah, I couldn't have told you my middle name at that point. And say I'll go right on to graduate school to get my master's in arts management. Today, when I see that tape, I want to wipe the idyllic grin off that skinny boy's face and correct the error I made all those years ago. I had it all wrong. "Well, Bob," I would say instead, "I'll move here to Los Angeles and go on to watch some friends die horribly of a disease we haven't even heard of yet. Then I'll struggle with drug addiction and spend years searching for life's greater meaning. You guys have anything up for bids that might help me with that?" But back to reality, or at least the price is right. Johnny Olson announces what I might just win, a shiny new 1981 Pontiac Coupe. The audience absolutely screeches, and the camera flashes to my lover Charlie, whistling with his fingers in his mouth, wearing the same jeans and t-shirt as myself. We were in that early wearing matching outfit stage of our relationship. Every choice I pondered during the game would feature a shot of Charlie squirming in his seat, fraught with excitement, and looking every bit the handsome boyfriend. On stage, Bob inspected the car with me. "Just look at those wire wheel covers there, Mark. Hey, tell me," he said as he put the microphone to my lips, "do you have a girlfriend back home?" "No, Bob, but your cameraman must adore my homosexual lover because he's given him every reaction shot since I stepped up here." "Oh, several," I said with a laugh, and an adorable but practiced shrug. "Well, you'll have several more if you win this car," Bob said. The game was something called Lucky 7, and Charlie yelled out every last thing for me to say and do. After going step by step through the game, with tension building and Bob reminding me how close I was to winning every 3 seconds, I get to the last question. After Charlie's prompting, I give the winning answer, the audience goes insane, and the cameraman goes back to Charlie as he explodes from his chair and dances about. "You've won that car," Bob shouts. If I had won a fur coat, Charlie would have jumped to the stage and thrown it on. So okay. I gave the car to my sister Nancy, and the manor range went to my brother David. I kept the insulated Kentucky Fried Chicken tote bag, my lone trophy from the event, and it's in the laundry room. It makes a great prop for viewings of the video. Mark at 19 is what I should call it. Within a few short years of coming on down, there would be enormous differences between the video boy and myself, changed by life events that would throw a wet blanket on my aw-shucks optimism. I've tried to recover from them, to regain the hopeful, expectant glimmer found in the eyes of the kid from The Price is Right, with mixed success. He was fearless. I have reservations. He believed. I suspect. The perilous life of a gay man who managed to get out of the 1980s alive does bring about some striking changes. I have a few stories about those dark years, too. Some of them are hilarious. Some aren't very attractive. And I don't share them at parties. I wonder if they have any value, if they define something more than myself, if they sound familiar. I've spent a lot of time trying to decide if my close calls and hard knocks have helped me, if they made me a better person, if they are, in fact, a valuable prize. And then I wonder, naturally, if the price is right. And because I like y'all a lot, I'm going to show you something people don't usually get to see.
fine-looking young feller. What do you do?
I'm a student at the University of New Orleans.
Oh, you are? Any student would love the prize that's coming out here for you to look at right now. This is a pretty spiffy look at those wire wheels.
Really impressed my friends.
Yeah, whipping around New Orleans and that. Do you have a girlfriend back there at the University of New Orleans?
Several.
Do you? Yeah. You'd have several more if you get hold of this. Now, here are $7 $1 bills. We're going to play Lucky 6. We're going to play Lucky 7 over here. Are you counting them, Mark? Don't you trust me? There are 7 there.
So $7.
Have it now. You're going to tell me each number in the pack. You have the 6. All right, now, you keep and tell me the number in the price of the car. Number 5, open the door. Mark, I'm not sure that I've ever had a contestant in any better shape than you are right now. I don't know how much you know about this game, but trust me, things are going very well for you at this point.
Okay, so you know I'm not a liar, right? Everything, the hair, the handsome boyfriend, is I think so you know I'm not making shit up. Okay, good. Something that occurs to me when I see that very last shot, you know, the smile, you know, is that is the face of the young man just before. Just before. You know, that is the face of the hopefulness of my life and everything I thought I had ahead of me, and our community as well. See, I'm trying to do this like Star Trek. I'm trying to go like this, and he knows to advance the slide, so I don't have to say advance. I can just wait. Oh, okay, that's good. That's a good one. Okay. So I was in Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles like the next year, and I was doing television commercials. I looked like that, so I looked like I was from Iowa right off the bus. And so I got cast a lot as the counter boy, you know, or the asexual best friend of the hot guy. You know, I was never that one. I was, you know, the harmless-looking dorky one. You know, this was McDonald's. Oh, it's McDonald's, fabulous, rodeo to riches. I got to say. I remember the director kept saying, could you please put a little less emphasis on the word fabulous? Because I kept saying, it's McDonald's, fabulous, rodeo to riches. Anyway, so I did that for a while. Life was good. You know, it was, everything was ahead of me. That's really, there we go. And that's really being in front of the Hollywood sign. An interesting time because, and we kind of forget this in the avalanche that would be AIDS, and that is that this was the late 70s, early 80s. We as a community, as a queer community, were starting to get like, we were getting our sea legs back. We were finding our strength. We were finding our political power, Harvey Milk, all of that. Guy on cover of Time magazine. There were milestones happening, like it seemed like on a regular basis, that told us, oh, wait a second, we're gaining, we're winning the game. We're getting more respect. We're getting more power. We're starting to see who we are. We're starting to realize that we could organize. And all of that stuff was happening in the middle of kind of this our sexual revolution, right? And, you know, say what you want about, oh, gay guys are promiscuous. Well, maybe. You know, but it was our language. It was the language we had. Today we have all sorts of languages. We have a much bigger vocabulary. In 1978, we didn't have a big vocabulary. We were just like, oh, you like this thing too, and so that's what we'll do. There wasn't a lot of other options or language for us. But nevertheless, you had this sexual revolution. You had a sense that our political power was growing. I was participating, maybe not in politics so much. Are you kidding? Look, I was 23. I cared about nothing more than the next beer bust, you know, and being in the clinic on Mondays, you know, to get my shot. You know, I used to say I got to clap so many times I called it the applause. It was a regular thing. And it was like, so you get a shot, everything's fine, get on with your life, you know. That was the life, and that's what I did, that's what that guy did. And, yeah, so that was what was happening with our gay power. One night, I was in Silver Lake at a restaurant, and celebrating my anniversary with Charlie, the handsome guy from The Price is Right. And we're having an anniversary where we moved to LA, so we're having dinner. And he starts talking, he starts looking behind me at somebody sitting behind us. And he says, oh my God, Charlie's from Texas, oh my God, that's Rock Hudson sitting at the table right behind you. And I always thought, if you see celebrities, which you did all the time in Los Angeles, do not bother them. Give them their privacy. And I just go off on Charlie. How dare you? Don't talk, don't look at him, don't stare at him. And I was really only saying that because I couldn't turn around, you know, and look at myself, you know, and I didn't have a good view of the guy. So I decided to give Charlie a hard time for, you know, pointing him out. And so we're having this conversation. And suddenly I hear this voice that says, you guys having any fun? And I turn, and it's Mr. Hudson at the next table. And Charlie says, oh yeah, we're having a great time. And Rock, I'll call him Rock, says, oh, because my friend and I were just discussing it, and we thought you were having a fight. And Charlie says, oh no, we're not fighting, it's our anniversary. We're having a good. He said, oh, it's your anniversary. Well, come sit with us. Let's have some drinks. We have to celebrate. And, you know, before I can object, Charlie's up out of his chair and walking over here. And so I decide, okay, fine, you know. So I get up and get the seat next to Rock Hudson, because I would have broken Charlie's arm if he had tried to sit there, and have a seat. And before I know it, drinks are coming. I don't know where the dinner went or ever was served. It was drinks, and it was, the man drank a lot. He could drink a lot. 8, 10 drinks, nonstop. And we're talking, and Trivial Pursuit had just come out, and everybody was playing Trivial Pursuit. And this topic of Trivial Pursuit comes up. Now, yes, he was with somebody, some friend of his, who I could not pick out of a lineup. I have no idea who he was. I was talking to this guy here. And during dinner, there were some glances in my direction that I would have taken much differently coming from him if it were not for the fact that I was celebrating my anniversary with the guy right here. But it was, you know, 1981. So we say, oh yeah, Trivial Pursuit, it's a lot of fun, we've played it. And Rock says, oh, I've never played that. And Charlie says, oh, you should come over and play with us sometime. And Rock says, sure. And Charlie says, how about tonight? And Rock says, sure. And Charlie says, great. And before I know it, they have arranged that Charlie is going to drive Rock's friend home, who has decided that he's not up to it. He's going to go home, exiting the situation. And I will drive in Rock's car to our crappy apartment in West LA that I cannot believe he parked his Rolls on. And we get there, and then Charlie comes over. We happen to have a bottle of scotch, and a full bottle, because we didn't drink scotch. It wasn't our thing. He drinks the whole bottle while he's there. And we do, in fact, play Trivial Pursuit. He won. There was a Doris Day question, I swear to God, which he got correctly. He wanted to gossip. He had lots of great stories. You could tell he enjoyed being Rock Hudson. You know, a lot of his stories began with, I was drinking one night, and there was something unseemly. This was a recipe for something unseemly. And I didn't care. I didn't care. I was 20 years old. 20. And starstruck and like, whatever, you know, I'm game, you know. And I think at one point, I said, hey, do you want me to roll you a joint? And he goes, oh no, I shouldn't do that, you know, pot makes me really horny. And I'm rolling a joint faster than you can think. So, anyway, yada, 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 30 minutes later, whatever, Mr. Rock Hudson is taking a shower in my crappy, stained shower bathtub. And as he's leaving, I say, wait. Could I get your autograph? And he scrawls, all my best, Rock Hudson, on some piece of scrap paper I could find. That was just life in LA. And I guess what I'm saying about all of this is it was frivolous, it was a little drunken, it was a little, how do we communicate? Oh, sex, you know. And it would mean something much more before long. How about this kind? Okay. Let's back that up and turn up the sound.
Disease Control in Atlanta today released the results of a study which shows that the lifestyle of some male homosexuals has triggered an epidemic of a rare form of cancer. Robert Bazell now in Atlanta.
Bobby Campbell of San Francisco and Billy Walker of New York both suffer from a mysterious newly discovered disease which affects mostly homosexual men, but has also been found in heterosexual men and women. The condition severely weakens the body's ability to fight disease. Many victims get a rare form of cancer called Kaposi sarcoma. Others get an infection known as pneumocystis pneumonia. Researchers know of 413 people who have contracted the condition in the past year. 1/3 have died and none have been cured.
Death didn't scare me. It was living with this for a long time. That's more frightening than death.
Investigators have examined the habits of homosexuals for clues.
I was in the fast lane at one time in terms of the way I lived my life, and now I'm not.
The best guess is that some infectious agent is causing it. Today, researchers here at the National Centers for Disease Control said they had found several cases where people who had been sex partners both had the condition. The scientists say this probably means they are dealing with some new, deadly, sexually transmitted disease. The investigators see this as a serious public health problem.
From an epidemic point of view, there have been more deaths from Kaposi sarcoma and pneumocystis pneumonia than have occurred with all the cases of toxic shock syndrome and the Philadelphia outbreak of Legionnaire's disease combined.
Researchers are now studying blood and other samples from the victims, trying to learn what is causing the disease. So far, they have had no luck. Robert Bazell, NBC News, Atlanta.
I want to say I remember seeing it. That for some reason, or maybe I've just watched it so many times I feel like I saw it. It was 1982. And there's a couple of things about that clip I want to point out. Narratives that were already begun in as early as this was. First, the lifestyle of homosexual men. The lifestyle of homosexual men. That's one. Let's build a narrative of it's about them and their behavior, their lifestyle, not just their sexual behavior, their whole lifestyle. That's one thing. That's one narrative. And the other one comes from the guy himself, the poor gay guy himself that's probably going to be dead in a year, who says, I'm not afraid of dying of it, I'm afraid of living with it. Did you catch that? Already, he was terrified of being marked, of having this thing, whatever it is, which doesn't sound good, and it certainly points the finger at me as being a queer. I don't want to have to live with that and have people see it. From the very, very beginning, we had to deal with that. We had to feel marked. And then, sure enough, we had the phone calls home. Mom, I got 2 things to tell you. I'm gay. I have AIDS. You know, which one of those is a deal breaker? 1985, I'm sorry, go back. 1985, that slide. Well, I just hate that. I would love to go back, but we don't have to. Just because I look so cute in that photo. The HIV virus was identified in 1984. In March of 1985, a test to check for antibodies in your body to see if you had been exposed to HIV, that test was publicly released in March of 1985. You weren't supposed to take it. Advocates, people on the scene, other gay people said, don't take it. Don't take it. Why? Because there were no medications, zero. There was no governmental research on it. You could be kicked out by your roommate, disowned by your family, fired by your job. You couldn't get a manager in West Hollywood if you were known to be HIV positive. There's nothing good that can come of this. Do not get tested. Don't find out. And the way that I felt about it was, you know, if there's an envelope sitting right in front of you right now and it tells you whether or not you will be dead or alive in 2 years, do you open it? I wanted to open it. I wanted to know. You know, I knew who I was. I knew what my gay lifestyle was. You know, I wanted to know how to prepare myself. So I had a friend who was a nurse in a doctor's office, and he brought me. I went over there after the office had closed because no, you don't do this during the working hours. You don't put this on your insurance. You don't make any public record of this whatsoever. God knows what could happen to you. So we did it privately. It was a blood test. It took 2 weeks. I remember standing in I can see it clear as day. I'm standing in my kitchen in the condo in Hollywood. The phone's on the wall. I got the phone out like this. And he says, Mark, your test is positive. You have been exposed to HIV. Good luck. But, you know, there wasn't any, so I'm referring you to Dr. So-and-so so you can start on treatment. You know, no, there was nothing. And you know, I don't know how to describe how it felt, because I don't know. I remember what happened. I don't know how I went numb. I blocked it out. I played invisible. I pretended that it wasn't going on until it was, all the time. You know, I thought for a while, I had been telling myself for a while, this is how I know what fear is, and what people who might oppose us are homophobic or whatever, how that works. They're afraid. They're afraid of things they don't know, they don't understand. Maybe they're willfully ignorant and they don't want to know, but whatever the case may be, I know how that feels. Because when AIDS was happening and you were hearing about it, and I was hearing about these cases and that and all that, I thought to myself, but it must be really sleazy people. That must happen to people who are into weird things. And, you know, going and being those weird things in dungeons all the time. Not me. I separated out. And I wasn't the only one. Those people getting kicked out by the roommates, some of those roommates were other gay men. We were all scared shitless. You know, it was all about self-preservation and fear. So I understand fear. I understand how it makes us separate out other people. And maybe I've done it myself. I know I've done it myself. So, the next time I saw Rock Hudson, he looked like that. It's not like we kept up with each other. I would later find out that if you were young and blonde or strawberry blonde and lived in Hollywood, then it was more shocking if you had not spent a night with Rock Hudson. And I do not mean to suggest, as some people assumed I did, that I know where my infection came from. I don't. There were many suitors. You know? It is true, however, that this is the first time that I knew somebody to be sick that I had been with. And many of us with HIV would get to that point where we, long-term survivors, or even those of us who never were it became HIV positive. We remember that time. We remember the time when we knew somebody, a friend of ours. Oh, we just the net became closer, and suddenly it was right in front of your face. And this was the first time with somebody like that. And then in this particular case, it was somebody that I watched die for the next 9 months on the news every night. Remember seeing those reports? Rock Hudson, you know, in Paris, and there's the helicopter shot of him on a gurney getting into a helicopter because he's going to get some miraculous blood transfusion somewhere, and how is he doing, and who has he slept with, and who's suing the estate, and all of that stuff. I watched it every night. You know, and I watched it, and it was like Mary Hart on an Entertainment Tonight talking about Rock Hudson, looking out from the TV saying, and you're next, buddy. I decided I needed to do something. We fell into different groups. Some of us were so shocked and freaked out and all of that that we just were kind of stunned into silence, or, you know, we didn't know exactly what to do. And then there were those of us that said, well, hell, if I'm dying anyway, I'm going to get up, I'm going to raise some hell, you know? I don't know that I raised hell exactly. I wasn't an act-up guy in the street, you know, that was not where I went. But what I did do is quit my job and went to work for the Los Angeles Shanti Foundation there in LA. They were the first AIDS organization, and they had one job, and that was they provided emotional support volunteers to people dying of AIDS. That was it. That's all they did. We trained volunteers through a 40-hour training on compassionate listening and compassionate presence, active listening, and help them be with the dying and make sure that they knew that this was not to tell them it was going to be okay. They had other people telling them it was going to be okay. It was not going to be okay. We just were there for them, to let them feel whatever they needed to feel. And we're in the face of mortality every day. Our volunteers were. It was very difficult work. That was Daniel Warner. Okay, that was Daniel P. Warner. Can we just talk about how beautiful Daniel P. I don't mean to be frivolous, okay, about how, you know, my pretty picture and all that, but look at that. I mean, my Lord. Daniel Warner was a handsome man that was on the scene in Los Angeles, and he decided to stop everything he was doing and to put his good looks to use to go ask people for money to get the LA Shanti Foundation off the ground. And I came to his office and said, I'll do anything. Please hire me. Let me do something. I became his assistant, went on to become other things at Shanti. That was my first job. I figured it was, you know, other than acting, it was really my first job. And I thought it'll be my last job. I'll just do this until I die. And you know, I will have been at a nice place, you know, until then. It was incredible work, and it was incredible work. I'm very proud of it. I kind of was an activist. Okay, this is what you do when there are no pills to take, and yet you hear about things that are like in the FDA, the NIH is starting clinical trials and stuff, you know, and you know. But you hear about drugs that might be available. You hear they're in China, there are all sorts of places. We were desperate, we needed something. And so I had three friends, Ron and Marcus and Leslie. Leslie was my best friend from college. And we, the four of us, would drive to Tijuana from LA, just a couple hours, would drive to Tijuana, cross the border, and we had friends who had gotten us prescriptions for a drug that was an experimental drug at that time. No HIV medications yet. And there was this drug that was an experimental drug. And so we got physicians to give us a handful of prescriptions, many of them. And we spread out, the four of us, and we went to every pharmacy in Tijuana and emptied them out of I think it was 3TC. Emptied them out, put them in the car that we bought, like under the spare tire, like we were drug smugglers or something, you know? We were drug smugglers, actually, because we were hiding drugs under the spare tire and getting them across the border. And these were great, these were like my Leslie was my best friend. He was totally into Barbra Streisand and, a very kind of a, a typical gay. And Marcos was the one that could speak Spanish, and he was Latin and swarthy and wore leather, and so he was kind of dangerous, to me, because I'm like, eh. And then Ron, who was an old friend that I used to work with, and he was into Jane Fonda workout videos. And I like all day with the band across his head. So that was the four of us in Tijuana with, the car filled with pills. And then we would get a house on the beach, for $100 for the weekend and get stoned and enjoy ourselves. And then on Sunday, we would get up and load up the car and drive home. And we would stop in San Diego on the way home. It was Sunday afternoon. It was the West Coast Production Company, which was this big gay dance club in San Diego. And it was a scene. It was quite the scene. For Sunday tea dance, like this, and we would pile into this to go to this tea dance on the way home to kind of celebrate our travels and what we had accomplished. And I remember, without a doubt, I know it because I was very present in this moment, and that was, this song was playing. This song. You know the song, right? Does it make you uncomfortable that I'm dancing? No? Am I okay? Okay. And we're on the dance floor. We're on the dance floor. And we have like our arms around each other. The four of you, when you used to dance in a group, And we didn't care about age. We didn't care about the drugs and the car. It was willful joy. Willful joy. Leslie was the first to die. He died in my guest room. We called his parents back in Texas and put the phone up to his ear. And they told him he was going to hell. You didn't know they were going to say that? Marcos died next. He got CME retinitis that got into his eyes. And when he woke up, he was blind. Happened overnight. And he couldn't take it, so he put a plastic bag over his head and died. Ron, I tried to take care of. He was in my house. I tried to take care of him, but he had gotten dementia. And I couldn't handle him. I tried so hard. I could not handle him, couldn't take care of him. I had to send him back to the East Coast, be with his parents. And his mother had no better time handling him than I did. So she put him in a nursing home. And he was there for months. She had to keep going and making sure that he was being fed because they'd leave the trays outside the door, and she'd open it, make sure the trays of food were on his bed. He was there for about 6 months and died. He was 26 years old. This is the sad part. It's okay. I tried not to do this for a long time. I tried to just take more drugs, do anything other than face this, or be sad for this, or honor them. So now I honor them. Now I honor them. The next time I saw Daniel Warner, it was there. We were doing a big event in Shanti, and it was a star-studded thing with lots of stars, and I was working the media room where the stars came in and talked to all the TV cameras. And somebody told me, Daniel's here. I'm like, oh my God, really? Daniel's here? That's great. And they said, yeah, he's with Miss America. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. Well, have him come so we can take him to the media room. And around the corner comes Miss America, Leonza Cornett, who, by the way, was the first Miss America contestant to win with a platform of HIV. Miss America, Leonza Cornett, wonderful woman. And on her arm is Daniel Warner, so swollen with KS, Kaposi sarcoma lesions. And he says, Mark, and he has this great smile, and I have to turn and introduce them to the media. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Miss America, Leonza Cornett, and Daniel Warner, the founder of Los Angeles Science Foundation. And they walk through, and of course, it's a room full of cameras, and they are flashing, 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 and then they kind of stop. And it's like, all the photographers, like, they had to look up from their camera to see if what they were seeing was what they were seeing. And Leonza grabs Daniel and pulls him next to her, pulls him in tighter, and they take another couple steps into the room. And the flashes start again, and they start again, and this time they really start. And they are smiling, and it is beautiful, it is triumphant. The smiles on their faces as they walk through, and now the photographers are into it. Mr. Warner, this way, oh, Miss America, please, one more, and they're smiling, and they're... And I thought, that man is the biggest star in the world. That man is the biggest star in the world. And he always will be to me. It's easy to lean into the tragedy of that, and I have to give you some of it because that was our lives, right? But mostly, I'm proud. Mostly, I am so proud of what we did. And by that I mean, people were hungry, and we had friends that needed groceries, and so we packed up the car and the trunk with groceries and took it, and that became meal delivery programs. And we needed to talk about what was going on, so we met in people's living rooms, and that became support groups. We built organizations. Every organization in this country that serves people living with HIV, that was founded for that purpose, was founded by people living with HIV, queer community, and our allies. Every single one. And I'm incredibly proud of that. When the decades went by and some of those organizations broadened their thing, and now they serve people with all life-threatening illnesses, I am proud of that. It tells me that we built something that mattered. We went to the NIH and we said, these drug trials to find new drugs are not nearly fast enough. Oh, look, we made a new clinical trial plan. Here it is. Take a look at it. Do this. Make it faster. Because we don't have time to sit around and wait. And they did. You're happy about how quickly we got vaccines for COVID? Thank an AIDS activist. Because we changed the way the clinical trials work. We didn't have it easy. There were a lot of people that were against us, and it was rough. I'll tell you, it's not like we were all triumphant. I was dealing with a lot of stuff. I mean, like any gay guy was. I remember sitting in church. I remember what they said about people like me growing up, trying to get over that. And now I'm sitting at TV as an adult, living with HIV, and watching people on the news, watching preachers say, see, we told you. That's what those people are. They're getting what they deserve. We had Jesse Helms on TV saying they should all be sent away to an island somewhere. I said if they give us Maui, we'll go. We had some plans for Jesse Helms who didn't believe in condoms. So what we did, I say we, but you know, the collective we, my friend Sean, my friend Peter Staley and others, put an enormous condom over the house of Jesse Helms in Virginia. It took them weeks of planning. This is the same stuff that they make circus tents out of, and Kenneth Cole, who made the shoes, who's gay, gave them $3,000 to go to the tent company people and make this. And they made it, and on that condom it says, a condom, stop unsafe politics. Helms is deadlier than a virus. It was on his house for all of, I don't know, 30 minutes. They went in there. They had to practice on a different house, on a friend's house that was about the same size. They scoped out the whole thing so that they knew when to put the ladders up and run up the ladder and put it down and all that, how long it would take. They put the condom on. They're sitting on the street. The cops come. The cops call Senator Helms and says, well, Senator, there's a condom in the house. And would you like us to arrest him? He says, oh, God, no, don't arrest him. Well, just make this whole story bigger. Just let him go. So they gave the guy the ticket for an expired tag on the van. That was it. And they got away with it. Don't ever say that AIDS activism didn't have a sense of humor, right? I think what I mean by this is there's these big questions in life. You know, why are we here? What does this all mean? Is there a God? All that stuff. And when AIDS happened in my 20s, you know, all these questions that you figure you got your whole life to figure out. You know, you'll figure that out. You'll think about that tomorrow. Now you have this much time. You know, and we're faced with it. And it did make me a much more thoughtful person, I guess, or I had to grow up really fast. I'll put it that way. We all had to grow up really fast. Oh, my Liz Taylor joke. Okay, not joke, it's not a joke. Liz Taylor, okay. You know what I like about this group? I don't have to explain to you who these people are, right? Like you saw Rock Hudson, you knew who it was, right? Okay, sometimes I go to places, and they're college kids. And I'm like, Elizabeth Taylor, Elizabeth who? Oh my God, you all know, right? Do I have to explain who she is to anybody here? No. Oh, thank God. Okay. Magic Johnson announced he was HIV positive in 1991. It was the biggest, most significant HIV disclosure in the history of the epidemic because, first of all, he was the biggest, aside from Rock Hudson, the biggest star, but secondly, and more importantly, he was a heterosexual man. He also happened to be a black heterosexual man. All, as tragic as it was, extremely helpful to us as activists to get a word out about who could be affected by this disease. Anyway, so he gives his big press conference. He retires from the Lakers. It's all very dramatic. By this time, I'm the director of media at Shanti. Not that I know what I'm doing, because the Los Angeles Times calls me, and they say, hey, you know, so this magic thing, you know, what do you think? What's the word? Well, I've been talking to people all morning about what was going on, and I was happy to share this with the reporter. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, nobody knows where he's going to align himself. And so Elizabeth Taylor is courting him like crazy. She's sending him flowers and everything. This I'm saying to a reporter of the Los Angeles Times. The next morning, the Los Angeles Times, front page, community reaction to Magic Johnson's disclosure. Blah, 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 blah. Third paragraph, still front page. I heard Elizabeth Taylor is courting him like crazy, said Mark King of the Los Angeles Shanti Foundation. I heard he sent her flowers. She sent him flowers and everything. I was young. And my boss comes into my office at 9:15 in the morning. And she says, Mark, I just got a call from Elizabeth Taylor's people. I said, you did? And she said, yes. And she says, and I'm quoting here, he said, Miss Taylor would like to know who the fuck is Mark King. And I said, she knows who I am. There was a lot of political, going back and forth. So let's fast forward a long way time to the fact that after all of this fighting, we do get the meds. We do get the meds. And we get medication finally in the mid-90s where the combination medications finally happened. The Lazarus syndrome occurred, which was people who thought to be dying out of their deathbeds because they were taking the meds. It was it was a miracle we had been waiting for. It wasn't the end of the miracle, but it was the beginning of it. And okay, it's like this. By then, it was emotional whiplash. You start out life, and it's like, you're gonna live. You got your whole life, you're gonna live. Then AIDS happens, and they say, oh no, you're gonna die. And then this happens, and says, oh wait, we were wrong, you're gonna live. Like, wait a minute. You mean I quit my job and told my boss to go to hell and ran up the credit cards and took a trip around the world, and now I'm gonna live? Shit. I had emotionally prepared myself to die. And I hadn't worked in years by that point. I had quit my job, and I really thought this was it. I had bad reactions to the medications. I really thought I wasn't going to, and now I am. And then I felt guilty because I didn't feel grateful. Very confusing. It affected everything. I remember coming down to the breakfast table one morning and looking across and seeing my partner at the time and saying, I am going to live a normal lifespan. And not with you. It turns out that the person you are ready to die with may not be the person you're ready to live with. Just saying. Just saying. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. I was a drug addict. Right. Oh, gosh. Okay, I don't know how it happened. I had always done recreational drugs alone. I think it's important to know because LGBTQ people have the highest rates of addiction, of alcoholism, of acting out, of escapist behaviors, of dangerous and self-harm of any other group. And why is that? The reason is, of course, if you tell us we're worthless long enough, we start to believe it. If we grow up hearing that, we start to believe it. And for me, I think part of, okay, now it's going to sound like I have excuses for being a drug addict. This reminds me of Phyllis Diller. We know her, right? She used to be on Johnny Carson. She'd come out on Johnny Carson, my favorite Phyllis Diller thing. She came out, she looked awful. She had this old, terrible house dress on, slippers, her hair is all everywhere. And she says, there's no excuse for looking like this. There are reasons. And I guess there's no excuse for my becoming a drug addict, but there are reasons. And some of those reasons I would outline for you because I think they're important for the big picture is that I felt as if my 20s and 30s were stolen from me. I felt entitled to the party. I felt entitled to go back and reclaim something that I thought I had lost. I wanted another trip around the merry-go-round. I wanted to, maybe when I could finally exhale, knowing that I was, in fact, not going to die. The survivor stuff kicked in. Lots of stuff was going on. All of it, I take responsibility for. And I am clean and sober a decade. But it happens, right? And then before I go to the aging thing, we're almost done here. I want one more reading because I think that it kind of wraps up nicely the difference between then and now. In yes, that is my brother on the left, and his partner Emil, my brother who is also gay, my elder brother. My brother Richard smiles a lot. He has an easy laugh. But there was a time, years ago, when he held a poisonous drink in his hands and begged his dying lover not to swallow it. A time when Richard held the concoction they had prepared together and wept. Emil couldn't wait. He took the drink from Richard quickly because the release it offered was something more rapturous than the appeals of his lover of 13 years. It was Emil's wish to die on his own terms if living became unbearable, a promise made one to the other. When that time arrived, however, Richard wanted another moment, just a little more time to say, "I love you, Emil," over and over again, before the drink would close Emil's eyes and quietly kill him. Richard has a charming store in my hometown today where he sells collectibles and does theater in his free time. The drink was consumed more than 20 years ago. There were people who displayed remarkable courage then, people who lived and died by their promises and shared the intimacy of death. And then the world moved forward and grief subsided and lives moved on. But make no mistake, there are heroes among us right now. There is a shy, friendly man at my gym. There was a time when his sick roommate deliberately overdosed after his father told him that people with unspeakable diseases will suffer in hell. My gym friend performed CPR for an hour before help arrived, but the body never heard a lone word again. There is courage among us, astonishing courage, and we summoned it and survived, and then years passed. We got new jobs and changed gyms. There was a time when old friends called to say goodbye, and by goodbye, they meant forever. When all of us had a file folder marked memorial that outlined how we wanted our service to be conducted, when people shot themselves or jumped off bridges after getting their test results. There is profound, shocking sadness here, right here among us. But years went by and medicine got better and we found other lives to lead. Our sadness is a distant, dark dream. My best friend Stephen just bought a new condo. He's having a ball picking out furniture. But there was a time when he knew all the intensive care nurses by name, when a phone call late at night always meant someone had died, and just who exactly was anyone's guess. Stephen tested positive in the 1980s, shortly after I did. A few months after the devastating news, he agreed to facilitate a support group with me. We regularly saw men join the group, get sick and die, often within weeks. Watching them disintegrate felt like a preview of coming attractions. But Stephen was remarkable, a reassuring presence to everyone, and worked with the group for more than a year, despite the emotional toll. There is bravery here, still living all around us. But the bravest time was many years ago, and times change, and the yard needs landscaping, and there's a brunch tomorrow. There was a time when I sat beside friends in their very last moments of life, and I helped them relax, perhaps surrender, and told them comforting stories, and lied to them. Jeremy lost his mind weeks before he died. Sometimes he had moments of sanity when we could have a coherent conversation before his dementia engulfed him again. It was a time when you were given masks and gloves to visit friends in the hospital. He was agitated with the business of dying and told me he couldn't bear to miss what might happen after he'd gone. I had an idea. I tell you what, I offered. I'm from the future and I'll tell you anything you would like to know. Okay then, what happens to my parents, he asked. I thought it might be a distracting game, but Jeremy's confused mind took it very seriously. They went to Hollywood and won big on a game show, and they never did need your support in their old age, I answered. He barely took the time to enjoy the thought before his hand grabbed my wrist, tightly, almost frantically. He pulled me closer. When, he began, and a mournful sob swelled inside him in an instant, his eyes begging for relief. When does this end? There was an awful, helpless silence. His eyes beckoned for a truth he could die believing. It does end, I finally managed, although nothing suggested it would. It ends, Jeremy, but not for a really long time. He digested each word like a revelation and slowly relaxed into sleep. There is compassion here, enough for all the world's deities and saints acting in concert, infinite compassion for men who lived in fear and checked every spot when they showered for Kaposi's sarcoma, and for disowned sons wasting away in the guest room of whoever had the space. But we get older, and friends don't ask us to hold their hand when they stop breathing, and the fear fades, and I bought new leather loafers, and the white party's coming. The truth is simply this, and no one will convince me otherwise. My most courageous self, the best man that I'll ever be, lived more than 2 decades ago during the first years of a horrific plague. He worked relentlessly alongside a million others who had no choice but to act. He secretly prayed to survive, even among the lives of others. And his horrible prayer was answered with the death of nearly everyone close to him. To say I missed that brutal decade would only be partially true. I missed the man I was forced to become, when an entire community abandoned tea dances for town hall meetings, when I learned to help those who were facing what terrified me most. Today, the lives of those of us who witnessed the horror have become relatively normal again, perhaps mundane. We prefer it. We have new lives in a world that isn't choking on disease. But once, there was a time when we were heroes. Oh my God, a picture of me taken within the last 10 years. There's been some terrible mistakes. Someone's getting fired. Yeah, I'm gonna get old. You know, it's that whiplash I told you about. Yeah, I'm gonna get old. But what does that mean? Because it's strange. I went to a funeral a couple months ago for a friend of mine who died of old age. She was a long-term survivor. And there was something sitting in the corridor, waiting to go into the funeral. It just felt so familiar. There was something about it. It was like the smell of it, the programs, hearing the, you know. I was like, I thought, and this is the weird part, I know this doesn't make sense. I thought I had escaped that. I thought I had gotten away with something. And I had escaped that. And I haven't, of course. I'm just facing mortality. Again, for a second time. And I am trying my best to wrap my head around that. I'm trying to have some grace about it. I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, I've got practical skills. I know my way around a hospital. I know when it's time for elder care. I know a few things. The spiritual stuff, the emotional stuff, I'm no better prepared. I'm not like, okay, I'm gonna go marching into death now. I've seen a lot, I'm good. No, I'm still just as frightened and confused as I was the first time around. But it's interesting to experience this. I wasn't counting on this. You know, I didn't think I'd be here talking to you. I'm really glad I am. I lead with gratitude, for sure. Okay, so I'm not a clinician. Thank God for Senior Solutions. And thank God there are people that help as a nonprofit for us to sort things out. And thank God that they're on the ball when it comes to, HIV. There are different things to, let me give you an example of that. I will just use my lived experience. For a while, a couple of years ago, almost every Saturday night, my husband and I are watching TV and I faint. Boom. Or I get up and say, let me get us some more ice cream. Boom. Boom. Out. The first time I was out for like a minute or two, which is a horrifying amount of time to be unconscious for your husband, right? I won't go into all of it. And then a trip to the hospital and all of it. By the way, if you want to get seen in the emergency very quickly, emergency room, tell them you're fainting. You get seen right away. Apparently it means really scary shit. Or it could. So tell them you're fainting or you have chest pains, they'll see you right away. Here's the short answer about what that whole ordeal was that went on for some time. I take HIV meds. Some of those HIV meds have what's called a booster. One of the medications has a booster so it keeps the other medications in my bloodstream longer. because it needs to be in my bloodstream longer for it to be effective. So one of the medications boosts it. Guess what else? It boosts other medications you might be taking. But they don't tell you that. Your HIV doc may not know that you're taking these other things or these old age things. Well, guess what else I was taking? I was taking a prostate medication that lowers your blood pressure. And then on Saturday nights, I was taking a Viagra. I'm not afraid, I'm not ashamed, which also lowers your blood pressure. Not right away. I managed to get through the act itself. I did great. I was a champ for 10 minutes. And then, later, downstairs, having our ice cream, boom. And this took weeks to figure out. Terrifying my husband. I'm like, I'm okay, I'm sure I'll be fine. Polypharmacy. And that's why it's important that as we age, as a community, we know that these are things they don't tell you about getting old. When you're also positive, or you're also queer, and you might be taking, who knows, any one of a number of medications specific to us. Oh, look, what does it say down here? Let me get out of the way. The odds of love. I was 50 years old after going through all that stuff I talked about when I got down on one knee and proposed to Michael in Milford, Pennsylvania, on Christmas Eve. And I say that because it's a great picture. My friend Matt was hiding behind a tree. I am literally proposing in that moment, and he was hiding behind a tree. It's easy for me to talk about the tragedy of it all. And if that were to be all of it, then I don't think that would be very helpful. Like, oh wow, you've been through some stuff. Okay. If I didn't go through all of that, so to have more empathy for somebody else, then what the hell was it all for? What the hell was it all for? Yes, I told through a lot of things, and a lot of it was very intense, and a lot of it was sad, and all of that. Yes, that's true. We all have our stuff. There are people in this audience who have been through worse than me, no doubt about it, more than one. You know, the challenge we all face is, are we able to take what we've gone through and use it as a tool to better help and understand somebody else? Tragedy is not a contest. I don't have to hear what you have to say for yourself and say, oh, you think that's bad? Let me tell you all about that. No. I shut the hell up. I use what I've learned or what I've experienced just to be at peace, just to be there for you and hear what you had to say. That is like, the thing that you put that on the sofa cushion, be there for somebody else. This is scary stuff sometimes. And now that I've gone through the HIV stuff, and that seems to be cool, that's not the disease that's going to kill me. Not anymore. As I go on and enter my elder years and face something else, it's about community. It's about being in a moment. Oh, I think I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's about enjoying a moment that I'm in right this minute. Standing on the stage. Oh yeah, the funerals are back. I told you all about that. Go on, that's depressing. We get it. Gosh, this is so big. Why did I go through it? To better understand somebody else, to have more compassion for somebody else. See, I did get ahead of myself. Did I get the answers I was seeking? No. I got other answers that I wasn't seeking. And the other answers I wasn't seeking is to this life that we're living right now is made up of little moments. You're in a hot theater right now, and it's raining outside, and you finally got here, and you're listening to this guy, and you laugh a little. It was sad, but you're right here, and I look at my feet. I ask myself all the time, I get that from recovery. Look at your feet. Where are your feet? You ever get anxious? You ever wonder if you can face what you're doing, or life is hard? Look at your feet. My feet are standing in a place in Bellows Falls. I had a great lunch today with some amazing people. I'm standing on a stage. I'm sweating like a pig, but that's okay. My hair still looks okay. Everything's all right. This moment is okay. what do we know in the here and now? That's it. That's what I know in the here and now. This life is a little scary sometimes, and so we hang on to one another. And if you can make this whole journey a little less scary for somebody else, maybe the person sitting beside you, or the person in the grocery store you don't know, then you've done your job, because that's all I got. I am so honored to be in your company tonight. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you. So, I know you're older, you don't have to stand. It's okay. I know you love me. What's our time? 8:47. My God, how long have I been talking? Jesus, I didn't mean to talk that long. Let's just take 2 minutes. They had asked if there could be some sort of Q&A or whether or not there's any feedback, stories of your own. Let's take like 3 minutes and see if there's any questions anybody might want to have before you check out the book stand, only because local retailer in the lobby selling that book. If you want to, I'll be happy to sign it for you as well. And where are we meeting across the street afterwards?
Down the street, Wonder Bar.
Wonder Bar. We're going to hang out at Wonder Bar. But I won't be drinking, or I'd have to call my sponsor. So, any questions or anything that comes up anybody would like to say? Yes, ma'am.
What helped you get sober?
Oh, what helped me get sober? Well, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I try not to promote any particular way to recovery, but I will say that I'm in a 12-step program. Crystal meth anonymous. I was a crystal meth addict. I went from leading an AIDS agency to shooting up every day. It was bad. I dropped off the face. I wasn't doing this kind of thing. They didn't know what happened to Mark for a few years. At any rate, so I was lucky enough that I lived in a city where there were crystal meth anonymous meetings. We all have to have our own. We have to have our own 12-step. We can't just be AA. You know, or even cocaine. And I did that too. No, it's crystal meth. Where's my 12-step? But it works. It works, and I'm very grateful. Yes?
Did you find that this past pandemic, the COVID pandemic, was triggering for you?
Yes, I did. And it's funny because when COVID started happening and people were comparing it to AIDS, I got very offended. I even wrote a piece saying, stop comparing COVID to AIDS, how dare you? You know, like I got the whole, you know, long-term survivor, how dare you? My tragedy is greater than yours, which was total bullshit. I was wrong. Because tragedy isn't a contest, and that's when I learned that. But when it was starting, and things were shutting down, and people were dying, and you realize, oh shit, people really are dying, and they're more in New York. When that was happening, and we didn't know how bad it was going to get, and it felt like it could go big, who knew? I was traumatized. I was freaked out. It felt very familiar. And that's also, though, when I was learning lessons about, I don't have to march in and go, well, you think this is bad, back in it, you know. I don't have to do that. I can be there for the people who are suffering, you know, and do my part, right? But yes, was it triggering? Very much so. Yes? I appreciate y'all. Thank you. I won't keep you a minute longer. Be sure to visit their bar, because that's how they make their money, is selling those candies outside, or buy a book. And thank you. Thank you.